Okay. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have an amazing guest with me, and I would leave you to do the introduction. But I'm really, really excited, to have you here. Um, First, I think our introduction, of course, is that we're neighbors, right?
Yes.
And we never had initially, we were just like hi, hello, just neighbors in that way. And then I started following you on social media, and I was like, I'm living beside a deep person. Like, I'm living beside a deep person, and your story has really resonated with me in a lot of ways. As somebody who also has come to the understanding of embracing vulnerability and the courage it takes to share your story. I just really find a lot of strength, in what you do by sharing your journey with so many people. So I'm really, really thankful
Thank you.
that you're here. So let's start with an introduction. Let's meet you.
Okay, my name is Iniabasi Leye. I'm from Akwa Ibom. I'm married a Yoruba man, just in case people are wondering.
Yeah.
I'm a mindset transformer. I'm a healer. I am an atmosphere creator. I am an art therapist. I'm an artist. I'm a broadcaster, a voiceover artist, a sex therapist, and a mommy.
Yeah. Two amazing
little rugrats.
Yeah.
But that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Nice. I am married to the one and only
Family.
Leye. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And I think where I want to start the conversation from is something that we just touched upon about vulnerability and finding the courage to own your story, right? For a lot of people, you go through things and you just don't have the courage to own that this is what my reality is, or this is what. How did you find the courage to be vulnerable with expressing some of the things that we are probably going to touch upon in this conversation?
How did I find the courage? That's a question that not a lot of people have asked from this angle. I think that I think it first started with the fact that I shared my story somewhere. I think it was at church, and it was an unconventional church. So they used to do this thing called Stories and Strings. And my friend, who was a pastor at the time, he didn't even know I had a story, and he just said, "Oh, Inia, I'd like you to share your story at the next Stories and Strings." And I realized that as I shared my story, there were so many people who walked up to me after who had found strength in what I had shared. And I also realized that in sharing my story more and more, there were so many people that it was helping. Now, I may not have even met these people, but there were so many people who found strength in just me telling the story that I'm here regardless of what had happened. But how I found the courage to initially share it, I think that I came to the realization that because my story had happened, it's not really mine. And so when things, I saw it as this was a story that I was entrusted with. And so I
You had a responsibility.
Yes, I had a responsibility to share it, regardless of what the outcome was, regardless of how I looked. And I also had this, understanding from God, which is another, different story. But I think that answers that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely have to talk about this story, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the next question for anybody listening. And I will let you tell it however you want to, however you want to share. And I remember as I was preparing for this conversation, I went to read and watch the videos again, where you talked about that day, 29th of March 2014, if I remember correctly. So yeah, please share.
Okay, I'll start from the very beginning. No, not the very beginning. I'll just start from the beginning because I always like to leave out that part.
Yeah.
Okay, so 29th of March 2014, I was kidnapped and raped. We had gone to celebrate my sister's birthday My sister's birthday is on the 20th of March, but we were all working 9 to 5s at that time. It's funny how none of us work 9 to 5s now.
Wow.
It's just, it's
All six
actually,
of you.
Yes, it's actually very interesting that none of us work 9 to 5s now. Anyway, so we couldn't celebrate her birthday during the week, so we decided to do it on a weekend. I think it was even the following weekend. Anyway, so we're at the restaurant, and I stepped out to buy credits. As at that time, I think credit via your phone or your bank was just becoming popular.
Yeah.
So there are still credit vendors.
Yeah.
So I stepped out to get credits, and I left my phone with my friend. Then as I was approaching the credit vendors just around the bend of the road, the restaurant was Piccolo Mundo. It doesn't exist anymore. It was somewhere in VI. This car pulls up beside me, and two men were in it. One was an elderly man, the other one was a big guy, dark, wearing glasses. And they're both holding guns. The big guy stepped out of the car, and he asked me to get in. Two things ran through my mind. One, are we on set? Like, is this a joke?
Yeah.
You know? But then he cocked his gun, so I knew it was real. And the second thing that ran through my mind was there are people around, and no one is actually doing anything, you know. But then I got into the car. We didn't go anywhere in particular. So, when people think of kidnap, they think that they take you to a place. We were just going round and round in circles within Victoria Island. All I had with me was my wallet. I had some money, 2,275 naira. I had my office pass at the time, and then I also had my ATM. So they had just paid my salary. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to give them everything because nothing is actually worth my life. They asked me where my office was. I told them, I gave them directions. I was thinking that they would drop me there after they took everything. They just zoomed past. The big guy made his way to the back. Before that, I had tried to open the door, just thinking that I would open the door and just roll out, regardless of if the car was moving or not, but it wasn't opening. In hindsight, I know that there was a child lock on the door. So he makes his way to the back. He opens my wallet, takes out the money, asks me why I have only 2,275 naira. He actually knocks me, And then they take my ATM. They ask me to close my eyes, but I want to see where we're going. So this guy at the back, he just keeps slapping me and beating me. I know that he was trying to make me afraid so that I would eventually close my eyes. But I would close my eyes for like a few seconds, open them again to see where we were going. To be honest, I don't even know why I wanted to see where we were going, but I just wanted to have a sense of what was happening. And I remember that the elderly man kept complaining. He was so afraid. He was so fidgety. He kept saying, her eyes are open. She's seen us. We have to kill her. We can't let her go, And then the guy at the back would slap me again. At some point, I did close my eyes because they stopped up somewhere to give somebody else outside the car my ATM. Asked me for the PIN, asked me for everything. I gave it to them. At this moment, I was wearing a jumpsuit, so he asked me to take off my jumpsuit. And I remember that I was just sitting in this car in just my underwear. Then he asked me to give him head. I hope that everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
So I remember doing that, just thinking, okay, if I did this, if I did whatever they wanted me to do, they would let me go. And my greatest fear wasn't even that they would kill me, to be honest. My greatest fear was that they would rape me. And so I was really pleading the blood of Jesus. I'm doing everything to make that not happen. And I remember that people would share testimonies in church or say things or hear people's stories and how people would say, I just called on the name of Jesus, or I pleaded the blood of Jesus and something happened. And I was thinking something has to happen. And so there I was sitting in this car just pleading the blood of Jesus and just hoping that something miraculous will happen, trying to try the door again. But nothing was happening. And so anyway, eventually they asked me to take off my underwear, so I'm sitting in this car just naked, just sitting in the back of this car, and we didn't go anywhere in particular. We're still going round and round in circles in VI. He tries to touch me. I hold his hand. He beats me again. Eventually the inevitable happens. He does rape me. And I remember that it happened along this Bar Beach road. I remember that we even stopped at a traffic light, and I was just staring out of the car. I just blanked out. I blanked out. And I remember seeing this bus at the side of the road. It stopped at a bus stop, and people were alighting and getting off, or getting on and getting off, alighting and boarding rather. And I remember thinking to myself, life is just moving along,
Yeah.
And then eventually he stopped. He asked me to dress up. And then the other guy was still, throughout everything, he was still talking about them killing me. And then this other guy was like, okay, where do we drop our body if we're going to kill her? and they were talking about, dropping my body along Bar Beach Road, or like, oh, do we take her into the water? Do we drop her by the shore, let the water carry her body, or do we just throw her in, or do we just leave her by the sand and stuff like that? But eventually they stopped 2 streets behind my office at the time. I remember because that particular street, my auntie used to work there. So they stopped there, and then the big guy made his way to the front, opened the door, asked me to get down, gave me my wallet back, gave me 275 naira from my wallet, and told me to use that to get to wherever I'm going. I remember seeing a yellow cab somewhere and just asking the Baba, the man had closed for the night. He was eating. I was just crying and begging him to take me to my office, hoping that I'd see someone who'd be able to take me to where my family was. By this time, I remember looking at the dashboard in their car. I had been gone for 5 hours. And he took me to my office. I just put all the money on his dashboard. I was like, this is all I have. He kept asking my daughter, what is wrong with you? Why are you crying? Why? I couldn't talk. So I saw my colleagues. I saw 2 people. I just told them I was robbed. I wanted to get to my family quick. I remember getting to the restaurant, and everyone was outside, like everybody, even the owner of the restaurant, like everyone was outside. They were looking for me, and because I didn't have my phone, so they were just going. They had called the last few numbers on my phone. The people, I could see the people they had called were there, like they had come. They were all looking for me. And I remember just telling my colleague to go for it and just drop me somewhere away from the crowd. Seeing my family friend and saying, "Oh, Ini, God brought you back. I was praying for you." And I just sat at the curb, or on the curb, and I was just sitting down shaking. And then I told my family friend what happened, and I watched my siblings find out one by one what had happened, and seeing the terror, the horror, on their faces. And that's what happened in a nutshell. I remember that night, no hospital wanted to take me because my sisters, 2 of my sisters' friends were there. They're both doctors. And they were the ones that spurred everyone into action that, you know what, there's no time to cry. We need to get her to a hospital. Yeah. But we went to about 7 different hospitals that night. No one wanted to treat a rape victim.
Why?
I do not know the rationale behind that. Some hospitals were like, it was late. They just couldn't be bothered by the fact that we had an emergency, and they were just these are hospitals that were supposed to be 24/7. There's even one that is like a popular big named hospital that we went there, and I remember them saying that they needed to get a consultant to come in, and they'd have to fly the consultant with a helipad and stuff, giving us this kind of bogus excuse just so that we would leave them alone. Eventually we went to some random hospital, and I remember that even them, the doctor was like, just go into the bathroom and wash yourself. It's because my sister's friends were doctors. They came in and were like,
you
what happened?
To do this.
Has he done this? Like, no, he just told me to wash myself. I'm like, no, you need to do these tests. You need to run this. And because of them, then they did what they were supposed to do. But yeah, that's the story in a nutshell.
I mean, I've heard this story, or I've read this story a couple of times, and every time my body just shivers anytime you talk about it. And I think one of the things that upsets me, when things like this happen, and whether it's rape, whether it's death, is how the world just keeps moving. Like, can the world not just stop for 1 minute? I'm going through this, but life just keeps moving fast on. And it's just it's intense, right? How did you survive after that day?
Man, I think that was like just the beginning of the journey. How did I survive? It was I first of all really have to give, and I don't think I've done this enough every time I've shared my story, to give kudos to my family. A lot of people don't have that. But I had a very excellent, like nearly perfect support system. My family, my mom, my godparents, they were, man, that's how I survived. But after this, because what I did, I had this amazing support system, but then I ran away from it because, while some people may think that if you have a support system, it's everything you need, the thing about trauma is that it deceives you into thinking that you're better off on your own. And so you kind of like isolate yourself and begin to do things to yourself that are not then are not worth it. So what I did was, I became really quiet. In a bid to, I think that in a bid to, I didn't want to be a burden to everyone, and I saw how this particular thing had affected everyone in different ways, and so I felt like if I was okay quickly enough, everyone would be okay as well. So I remember shutting down. I remember developing this defense mechanism of going out and being okay, being chirpy and laughing with everyone, being the usual, I used to be very very playful. I still am a little bit, but to be honest, I will agree that life has changed me a bit. But I used to be very playful, and I used to be out there, and so I told myself I wasn't going to let this change me. It's the biggest lie I told myself. So I developed that art of going out, being okay, and then when I get home, I just shut down. I didn't even know it was happening until one day my sister mentioned it. I also told myself that if I had sex with somebody else, it would help get over the feeling of being raped, and so that now started an avalanche of sex addiction, because I was having sex with multiple people, telling myself that, okay, this time is the next time that, I'll feel better once and for all. And then, the thing about addiction is that you don't even know that you've gotten addicted, because you now think to yourself that you just need to do this so that that's why the heart of man is desperately wicked. You can justify anything. Anything. And so I told myself that if I kept having sex, it would I'll feel better. And sometimes I say, okay, this is the last time. Maybe this guy he seems okay enough. This time will be it. But the thing about sex as well, and the reason why it was created just for marriage, is because sex is addictive. It was made to be addictive, but between just two people, just one pair, and when you have sex, there are oxytocins, there's dopamine that's released. It's a form of comfort. It's a form of rest. It gives you this okay feeling, but then it's a temporary high if you're using it as a defense mechanism. It's like drugs. You're okay in the meantime.
And once you leave that situation,
once you leave, sometimes you may not even leave. Sometimes I would be there, and once sex is over, everything just comes crashing, And so I felt very empty constantly. I don't know if you've ever felt empty to the point that it's painful. That's how I felt constantly, and so I was constantly trying to fill whatever emptiness that was. And so I definitely knew definitely knew that I couldn't stop having sex, because this feeling, I couldn't feel it. And so to fill the void, I would keep doing that. And then the good thing is that I didn't go into drugs, but to be honest, it's more or less the same thing. It's more or less the same thing. But then how I got over it was that I realized, I got to a point where I realized that if I didn't stop, I was going to die. The thing about sex is like, it's, in a nutshell, it's a transfer of spirits. And after a while, you don't even know whose spirit you're carrying. You're carrying yours. You have your own issues, and then there are different people that you've been with, and you carry that as well.
Using it as a coping mechanism.
Do you understand? And so I just knew that I was so severely depressed that I knew that if I didn't stop at some point, and if I didn't get help, if I didn't ask God to help me, I was going to die, But, in the midst of all of this, I had a very solid relationship with God, which every time I share this part, people find, they find it really shocking. But I did. Because I remember that I used to hear God's voice so clearly. Did I ignore it? Yes, I did, of course. But, and there are some times that it did just help. I couldn't pray. I used to be in the choir. I love to worship, but I couldn't do any of that after this rape incident happened, and definitely after I was on this sexcapade. I couldn't do any of that. I had a lot of coming back and saying, "God, I'm sorry, it's me again." And then sometimes I'm just like, I can't do the "God, I'm sorry, it's me again." I'm just gonna go on. At some
do
point,
whatever I want to do.
At some point, I stop. But I realized that this way of life was going to kill me sooner than even the experience I had would. And
that realization just woke you up.
It really woke me up, because what I like to tell people is that no matter what you're going through, at some point you have to come to the realization that something has to change, and that's what happened for me. But to be honest, I had a really, really fantastic support system. I had one of the things that helped me the most was my sister constantly telling me, and she would like her face would literally be in my ear, and like I mean that if you can visualize it, her face would be here, and she'd be saying that everything is in your mind, not the experience, but it's the pain and the fear that you feel after. I remember her asking me one day, I think it was the day after, and I was really crying. We tried to go to church. She was like, I'm not going to leave you at home alone. We're going to church. I remember that after this thing had happened, I couldn't talk because if I just opened my mouth, I'd just be bawling, you know. And I couldn't even sit still and listen to people talk. I was just crying. I remember she pulled me on her lap and she said, just cry it out. Then she asked me, she said, what are you feeling exactly? What is it? If you can tell me what you're feeling. And I told her, I'm afraid, I'm scared, because I remember I couldn't stop shaking. I was shivering, I couldn't stop. And I said, I'm scared. And then I also said that after a while I said I was hurt. You know, I was hurt. And I realized later on, like a few months later, because I said I wasn't going to ask God why. That's another place.
I was going to ask you, were you angry at God?
That's another place I decided to deceive myself. I said, I'm not going to ask God why. This thing has happened to me for a reason. I was right in some part, but, you know, the other part, no. And so I told her that I was upset. And I remember her telling me constantly after that day, everything is in your mind. If you can fight it up here, you would be able to see a way forward. At first I was angry with her because I'm just like, it's because it didn't happen to you. You're saying it's in my mind. But then I realized that it's true. Anger, the pain, the fear, everything is up here. And so everything that happened to me is stored up here as a memory. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep for about a year and a half, almost 2 years to be honest. Because closing my eyes meant that I would see everything so vividly, you know, and the darkness meant that, you know, everything is like a nightmare. And so, but I realized that it's a nightmare because the memory is lodged in here. It's, you know, everything is in my mind. Everything is up here. And so I learned how to fight my mind. And then another one of my sisters told me was, if you ever need to cry, cry. Don't keep it inside. Don't say I'm not crying. No, she was like, cry it out. Cry as much as you need to. But when you're done crying,
the emotion pass through you.
Yes, like a storm. And she's like, when you're done crying in that moment, you clean your face and you go about do what you need to do for the day. But if you need to come back in 5 minutes, you come back in 5 minutes and cry again. Yeah. You know, so that's pretty much how I survived, you know, after this.
Yeah, ordeal. I mean, I think, you know, when you are speaking about the way the mind works and pain, I remember one story that I read, and one of the people that I think has inspired me has been Maya Angelou. She shared her own. I mean, she was quite young when a rape experience happened, and then in her case, right, she reported to her mother, and then her mother went to confront the person, and then the person was going to be put in jail and all of that. Long story short, this person killed himself or died or something. I mean, he lost his life. And in her mind, as a child, she felt like her voice had caused the death. And she did not speak a word for 7 years. You know, I just remember how just going through something, how your mind can, you know, interpret a situation in a way that changes the course of your life, you know, drastically. And she didn't want to speak any word because she felt if I say something, she had the fear of saying anything because she felt the words that I speak, you know, could cause somebody's death.
And that's how powerful your mind is. And, you know, that's how powerful your mind is, that it can change your life drastically, and it can change your life for the better. It's the reason why when you hear stories like mine, you're wondering, how are you able to be okay now? It's everything is in your mind. And well, I'm just going to say it. This is what the devil doesn't want you to know. The devil doesn't want you to know that you have more power than you think. The reason why all of these things happen to us, and it seems like it has so much power, like you've been traumatized and you've been scarred for life, is because it's like a barking dog. You know, when you see a dog in a cage and the dog is barking, when you enter a person's house and the dog is barking from a gate, your initial reaction is to run away and to be scared, and your heart is beating.
Yeah.
It will take you a moment for you to realize that that dog is in a cage. And that's how trauma is. That's what experience in life is. Not that they don't happen.
They
No,
do
they do.
happen.
Not that they don't hurt. Not that they don't scar you. They do. But the truth is that the mind is way more powerful than we think. And how you fight is not, it's not with your body. It's not with anything else. It's actually with your mind.
Yeah, 100%. And I also wanted to emphasize one of the things that you talked about, which was the importance of having a great support system, having people who can uplift you, who can let you go through the pain and also be there for you. Like I am obsessed with people, the people in my life. Honestly, I feel like God has just blessed me with so many amazing people.
So good.
Who have lifted me up, at very low times. I mean, sometimes when I talk about how important people are and how in love I am with a lot of the people in my life, people don't get it, right? And I know that people have been burnt with different experiences with human beings. But for me, that has been the greatest, one of the greatest blessings of my life. Just having people who are there for you, even when you don't know what you need.
Exactly.
Right?
Even when you don't know what you need.
Yeah,
That's very
yeah,
important. It's very important.
The next thing that I wanted to talk about was this message you shared on Instagram where you said, "Can you thank me?" And I want you to speak a bit on that because it's it touched me. Honestly.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the very, very beginning of this story that I shared with you. The day that I was raped, the day that it happened, I remember I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw this Instagram post of Heather Love. You know Heather Love. And I had started following her at the time. She had traveled to Atlanta to preach, and she was on a stage, wearing this red dress. And I remember telling God, I was just like, I want to do this for you. Like, I want to, not the conventional way, because if I want to do anything, it's never conventional, but I want to do this for you. I want to go around the world and, not preach, but, talk about you. I love to worship. I can sing. I want to go around the world and worship, but I don't want to do it just because. I don't want to do it just because I can talk or I can sing. And I was like, God, give me a story. Give me a story, God. I remember saying that, and then life moved on. But it was that day that I was kidnapped and raped. Now, I remember that it wasn't until last year that I shared this part of my story, because the truth is that, I'm going to tell you that the truth is that at some point I forgot about it. I did. And then after a while, when I did remember, I knew that I didn't have enough understanding about it to share. And so if people were to come and ask me questions, I don't want to share about anything that I don't have understanding of.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember that I stumbled on this lady. Oh, man, let me check. So I want to check my phone.
It's Dr. Helen Rose.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the surname correctly, but Dr. Helen, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
I noted it down.
So I stumbled on, God began to teach me about honor. Yes, let me start from there. He began to teach me about honor, and I remember him telling me last year, was it June? Yeah, June last year. Him telling me that I want to honor you. And I was thinking to myself, okay, God wants to honor me. How and why? What have I done? I was really thinking, okay, maybe a different place I'm going to share my story, the work I'm doing and stuff. But God is like, no, I want to honor you. And I started thinking a lot about the beginning part of my story. And I know that for me, how it works for me is that if something is on my mind a lot, or if a person is on my mind a lot, I know that I have to do something with that thing or that person. And so I'm asking God, is it time to share this part of my story? What do you want me to do? Just as I'm asking him, my godmom sends me a link to this lady's story, Dr. Helen. And so I watch her story. She talks about how she was raped. She was a missionary, and when in Congo around the time that they got their independence. And while they were there, there was war. And in the war, the things that happen in war, it's killing, it's rape, it's, stealing, and all of that is terrible. War is terrible. And she was a nurse there, but also a missionary. And these men come into the house where she is, And I'm just telling the story, like, not verbatim.
Yeah.
But then she knows that the inevitable is going to happen because they're taking her down this hallway to the room where they're going to rape her, and she hears God's voice very clearly, and he says, "Can you thank me?" At first she doesn't want anything to do. She's like, "God, please, I don't want anything to do with what is going on. What do you mean, can I thank you?" And he's like, "Can you thank me?" And then God says to her, "They will touch your body, but they won't be able to touch your soul." That is like a light bulb moment for me, because the night that I was raped, that's exactly what my mom said to me over and over again. She kept repeating it to me. It was almost like as if that was God's voice. And, as I heard this lady say it, I paused the video and I just started wailing, because I'm like, oh my God. And my mom is saying to me, she holds me really tightly, and she's like, they can only touch your body. They've touched your body, but they will never be able to touch your soul. She's just repeating it over and over again. And then I remember that I'm watching this video, and so this lady says this, and she says she gets this sense of peace, and she just, it happens, and she's not even there, but she experienced it. And then, many years later, she begins to share her story, and she sees how it's helping different people. But let me just fast forward to my part. So I'm watching this, and I get a lot of things from what she shared. And that question, I just keep hearing God ask me, and he's like, "Can you thank me?" And I'm like, what does this have to do with the beginning part of my story? And then God, I sit with someone, a mentor of mine, and he explains to me about choices. And he's like, your ability to choose is actually the only thing that makes you like God. There's so many other things, but it's the major thing that makes you like God. And it's the reason why God gave us the gift of choice. And so for every time that you choose to align with God's plan for the earth, not just for you, because it's way bigger than you, God honors your choice. He honors your choice. He honors your obedience. Now I'm sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so how do I piece this puzzle together? And I'm thinking, the truth is that the issue of rape, has been happening way before I was even given birth to. But it's like in Isaiah chapter 1, where Isaiah is saying, he's standing there in the presence of God, and the eyes of God are roaming the earth, and the voice of God says in a loud voice, "Who will go for us?" And God is looking like, who will go for us? And in that moment, I now said, "God, I want a story. Give me a story." God is like, okay, so we found,
there you have it.
we found someone.
Yeah.
So now the issue of rape has been happening, but God has been looking for that one person that would go through this thing. Now, is God wicked? No. Did God make this happen? No. Did God allow it? Yes, he did. Because while the devil was looking for a way to tamper with my life, God was looking for a way to create a savior. Each and every one of us comes to this world being a solution to a problem. Now, it's the reason why people are saying, "I'm looking for a purpose." It's okay. Your purpose will find you.
Yeah. Like I definitely have moved from that looking for a purpose journey.
Yeah, your
honestly.
purpose will find you. It's okay. And here I was in that moment, aligning, not even knowing what I was doing, what I was saying, just saying, "God, give me a story. I want to do this for you." And God is like, "Okay, this is someone." And the thing is that before I even aligned with it, God had already prepared this. God already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
He knew. And he knew how I would come out of it and how strong I would be. He knew that everything would happen even after. He knew that by the time I held on to him, I wasn't letting go. Because I can tell you for a fact that if the devil knew that this is where I would be today, I know every day the devil is slapping his forehead like, "Kai, we missed it with this girl."
Yeah.
So where I say that God asked me, "Can you thank me?" is that this is a story that I was entrusted with. This is a responsibility that I have been entrusted with. And when a lot of times you think about it, like you're the one that should be thanking God. No, God is like, "Can you?" Or I don't know how. Anyway, God is like, "Can you thank me for trusting you with this story, with this experience?" Because it is an honor for you to go through anything in life. I always say that if you're ever opportuned to go through any trial in life, it's an honor, and it means that God trusts you, because God is a compensator. If anyone had told me when I was going through the nightmare of the aftermath of being raped, or going through the the anticlimax of having multiple sexual partners and dealing with all of that and going through heartache and going through so much. If anyone had told me, because I had an abortion as well, if anyone had told me that I would be here, be married to the most amazing man and have 2 kids and be at peace. Peace is something that is so underrated.
Honestly. Yeah.
Peace of mind. I just wanted to have one day, one day that I would smile genuinely. Like I would laugh genuinely. It's not that I'm laughing to keep up appearances. I wanted to have one day, every day now, Nifemi, I laugh. I laugh till my belly aches. I laugh. Last night, I thought about this again because myself and my sister were going through, there's this couple on Instagram that we were watching where she's manhandling her husband, and we were laughing. I was laughing to the point that my eyes were red. And I thought about it again. Look at this.
Look at this happening.
Look at this happening. If you're ever opportune to go through a trial, it's because God trusts you. Because God trusts the ones he knows that will be able to do the work. And he will compensate you. I promise. It's not even that he allows you to go through fire just because. No, God is a compensator. And when you think about God compensating you, you think about the fact that it's not limited by our understanding of riches and wealth. God deals out blessings in terms of himself, and God is infinite. So yeah, that's.
I definitely feel you on that, especially the peace part. I say to people, there's the peace, when the Bible says peace that surpasses human understanding. Honestly, when sometimes I talk to people or I kind of share some of my own experiences, which are in a different space entirely, and I say it from a place of peace, right? It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain how you get to that point where you're at peace with your journey, you're at peace with your life, you're at peace knowing that. And I think there was something that you shared where you said, as long as the sun keeps rising,
oh yes, you'll be all right. That was a promise that God made to me.
And like for me, I mean, there are days that are harder than other days, but that's just always, maybe not in those same words, but that reminder that I'm still here, right? And as long as I'm still here, everything is going to be fine. And the other thing I just also wanted to touch on was how powerful our stories can be, how powerful people's stories can be. And that's, and we were talking about this even before we started the conversation, that's the bedrock for me of this, right? And just you speaking to how you were listening to Dr. Helen's story and how it touched you, right? Yeah. I think it's just so invaluable how people's stories can really transform us. And I'm just hoping that this conversation also helps someone out there.
Yeah, me too.
In some way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to, talk about therapy, right? You are an art therapist, you are a sex therapist. And a lot of people have different opinions
on therapy.
On therapy. I've done therapy a couple of times myself in the past.
Did you like it? Did it work?
So I would say it worked, right? I think the challenge that I had, or the way that I saw it, was I feel like I got everything, I got a lot of the things that I needed from a few sessions, right? I know that for some people, it kind of is like a lifetime thing or something that you have to do over and over again. But for me, I felt like after a couple of conversations, I got what I needed. I got the tools that I needed. So I would say that it helps, right? But I also feel like I get a lot of therapy from the people in my life. Because when I'm going through, and I think is one of the things that I'm deeply grateful for, that when I'm going through or something that I feel, an emotion that I can't really place my hands on, there are people that I can share that with, right? And that can just give me what I need, whether it's as small as being triggered by an Instagram post. You know, I can send a message to someone and say, okay, I just saw this and I'm feeling this kind of way, and you know, I get that support. So I also felt like for me, therapy was also loving on the people that I have in my life and letting them, you know, love me back. And that also served me in some ways. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of how much therapy do we need as humans. Do we need therapy at all? That's some people. I truly believe in therapy, but I'm just not sure how do you find a balance between, because sometimes I also feel like one of the things that therapy helped me do was there were times when I felt like I didn't want to burden the people that were in my life with some of the conversation that I needed to have. So I needed somebody who was neutral, objective, who would just hear you speak. And the beautiful thing about therapy is you get the answers yourself, I think, right? It's not necessarily the therapist telling you what you need to do or and all of that. So that was definitely helpful. But for me, I just felt like I needed it for a short time. And even though somewhere in my head, I'm like, do I still need to continue this so that I don't get to a point where I now need a lot more therapy in the future? I don't have the answer, honestly, and I'm hoping you can shed some light on that.
Well, therapy is amazing. And to be honest, you are one of the people I always try to make my clients into, where you get the answers you need and get the life lessons that you need to help you carry on with your life without me. I never want to be a crutch that people use to walk through life, because it's often what therapy turns into. Now, it's good to always have a therapist you can rely on, you can come back to every now and again. But it's like helping a child. At some point, you'd have to learn how to walk on your own. But in the moment where you need me, you may not have the ability to do that or the technical know-how. And it's for me to help guide you into that. Therapy is so necessary. It's so important, so good. It helps you learn how to. The way I see therapy, the way I help with therapy is that it helps you learn how to think better and how to think wider and how to think from different perspectives. Things where things that are hurting you or worrying you or are plaguing you, you see it from one angle, one perspective. Therapy helps you to see it from all angles, helps you to see it and think from another angle, helps you to see it and, you know, and all of that. It opens your mind, you know, into the possibilities of other things, not be focused on just one thing. You know how sometimes you have an issue and you think that it's coming from here, but it's a possibility it's coming from 10 different places. You know, it also helps you to dig into the root of where this issue even started in the first place. And I believe that a lot of times that is 95% of what the problem is, finding the root cause. And once you're able to do that, you're able to find root causes of everything else in your life. One of my greatest joys is having last sessions with people and people telling me, oh, I didn't talk to you this week, but guess what happened? You know, this happened, and I was able to sit and ask myself, and I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud, because it means that you've grown without lesson. Me. I don't want you to have to come back to me every time you have a problem. And it's okay for you to have a few sessions and get what you need. You know, you being able to note that there are people around you that love you, and you know, and you allow them to love you, it means that your therapist did a good job. You know, because a lot of people still don't know that. And if you still don't know that, then it means you still need therapy. But you being able to note that even around you, you know, because the groundwork of therapy is this, finding the root cause of issues, meaning that sometimes you'd have to dig into your past. Sometimes it may not even be your past, it may just be the present. What stemmed this issue? Where did it stem from? Because everything has an underlying issue. Being able to find the root cause, and then being able to communicate. Being able to communicate, being able to allow yourself to be communicated to. That's these three things are the groundwork of therapy. And then you now have your mind being open to different perspectives, different angles, and being able to have a bird's eye view, an eagle's view, you know, a window view, and all of that.
All the views.
So all the views.
Yeah.
So if you're able to achieve that as a human being, you'll find that as you grow with all these basics, you'll become emotionally intelligent. Now, being emotionally intelligent is something that you'd have to keep being abreast of, you know, because people change. You will meet different walks of people. Sometimes you meet the same kinds of people. But if you're able to find the basics, that's good enough. There's some people who will need therapy constantly because some people are not as strong as others, and that's okay.
And that's okay as well.
That's okay as well, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is my that's my take
I
on
100%.
therapy.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Because thinking about it now, therapy definitely helped me connect better with the people
So good.
in my life. Helped me appreciate the relationships in my life a lot more, and helped me be more vulnerable with the people in my life, right? I mean, things that I would naturally not talk about, not share, you know, I found the strength to start sharing them. And in that, I found that everything can be therapeutic for me,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Even just a conversation with my mom or with my dad or with my siblings, or just
Yes.
like everything, I could get therapy from everything. And I think, and I definitely can attribute that to going to see a professional therapist. And I hope that the stigma, I think that is starting to change a lot now. I think people are a lot more receptive
Yes.
about therapy. But there's still some stigma about it. It was like, you
A
need to
whole
see a
lot.
shrink. You know?
A whole lot.
I really hope that people can unlearn some of that and start to see the benefits.
I think it's because we live in a very spiritualized cultural society where you
Like,
know,
talk to God.
Yeah, talk to God. And what I always say is that, look, the reason why the hospital exists is because God gave someone the wisdom
Yeah.
to navigate medicine and science, you know. And the reason why therapy exists, because you know, when I have therapy sessions with people, there's a, you know, depending on what you need and depending on who you are, there's therapy and Jesus put together, infused there. Sometimes I may talk about Jesus without even mentioning his name, and you know that you will get what you need.
Yeah.
Because I always tell people that, you know, it's me being a therapist is God that sent me on this journey, to be honest. If you had asked me in 2019 if I was going to be a therapist, I'd be like, what for? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I so, and therapy, you know, it comprises of so much. And the reason why I'm an art therapist is that when I sit with people in therapy, we do talk therapy, we do music therapy, we do art therapy. Sometimes I hand people crayons and a paper. They first of all look at me like, am I a child? But you,
Yeah, you give
but
me
then you
crayons.
find that as they're talking, they begin to ask you, do you have color red? Do you have blue? Because it helps. It just helps to relax. And I always tell people you can do this on your own. If you need to just vent, you need to do something, or you don't know how to put a word to what you're feeling, just get a crayon, get a paper, just doodle. And just, you know, scribble around. It will. You'll be surprised. Put on some music. You'll be surprised how much that will help. The reason why you come to a session with me is that it helps to have someone there to bounce your thoughts off.
Yeah.
And it also helps for me to help guide you into where you need to be. But if you're able to pin it down, you're able to hack it,
Yeah.
it's good. It's good enough. The stigma, I think that the stigma around therapy is from living in an over spiritualized and religious and cultural society, because you know there's culture as well. So therapy is a culture shock for us, especially in Nigeria. But then what we don't know is that it is so needed. It's so needed. There's a lot that there's a reason why science exists. There's a reason why books exist. There's a reason why therapists exist. There's so much that is needed for the growth of people. There's so much that you don't know. Not every child or not every person is just angry because.
Yeah.
You know, there's something somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
100% agree with you. I was choking a bit as you were speaking earlier, because I was remembering the last session that we attended, where you had your art therapy session, and you were just painting, and then Femi was playing. And it was just so beautiful, right? And then people were sharing their stories. it was indeed an experience, and you leave that kind of setting feeling a lot lighter. I think that's also one of the things that therapy does for you.
Yeah.
You can unburden on your therapist. I mean, I don't know how therapists unburden.
Sometimes we have our own therapist.
Okay, I believe so, because it's like that must be a lot of burden to be carrying, because some of us just go and unburden on our therapist and like, okay, I live here feeling a lot lighter. So I hope that as a therapist you also are getting, some of that.
Well, what helps me as a therapist is that I realize that your problems are not mine to carry. So I sit there, I listen, but when we're done, I let it go. That's it. So I'm a pipeline.
Yeah, you're not storing it. It's flowing through you,
yes,
right?
Yeah. I learned that the hard way, though.
Yeah.
I learned
I can
that
imagine.
the hard way. I'm an incubator. I'm a feeler. And so I used to, and then I realized that it was weighing me down. And so I had to learn how to let it go. Yeah.
Versus being like a container, like a pipe. So there is an inflow and it's just flowing out that way. I think that's beautiful. So one of the last things we want to talk about, which is one of the things that you also do, is sex therapy.
So good.
You love talking about sex so much. And that's always very interesting. I'm like, it's a conversation that a lot of people feel very uncomfortable having.
I'm telling you.
So I'm going to, even me, I'm not sure how comfortable I feel.
I see how you're blinking.
I'm not sure how comfortable I feel having the conversation. But then I read this post where you had talked about phases of sex in marriage, and there was discovery, and there was healing, and there was practice. I'm like, okay. You're going to talk about sex as well, right? As a sex therapist, I mean, first of all, I wanted you to touch a bit on what you had said about the phases, but as a sex therapist, also what are the biggest tips that you share, that you think is helpful for people in that space?
The first thing that I always like to share with people is that sex is a selfless act. If you can wrap your mind around that, it helps you move forward. The problem with sex a lot of times is that sex is portrayed as selfish in so many ways. Is portrayed as what
just
you
getting something
can
from someone
yes
else.
Exactly, just getting something from somebody else, and that's the issue. So there are so many myths. Man, I'm already opening my notes. You people are in trouble.
Yeah. So
the thing is that there's something that I wanted to share. Oh boy. Where is it?
You must find it though.
I must find it. And I will. Just give me a second. I think that... Okay, yeah, okay. Found it. There are a lot of myths around sex, that are out there. And it's the reason why a lot of people have issues with sex. There is no proper education. There is no proper understanding of what sex is. And so it is abuse. When you don't know the value or the function of a thing, you abuse it. Yeah. And so that's what has happened. I can talk about how sex has been perpetrated and how it's been abused, but there's no need. We all already know that. So sex is a selfless act. When you have it in mind that when two people come together, it is about me pleasing you, you pleasing me. No one will think about what about me. And when you do think about what about me, the next thing you do is to communicate. Maybe there is actually something that you're looking for, that you need, that is not being met, that's not being given to you, and that's where communication comes in. But you see, a lot of times where communication is lacking, resentment is not far off, so it begins to trigger in, and then before you know it, sex becomes routine. I'm just doing it because I need to do it, because I'm obligated to. This is what we're supposed to do, but it's not supposed to be like that. What people don't know is that when you get married and you start having sex, the reason why I say sex is in phases, and the first phase ever that exists for sex is the healing phase, is because there's so much that you've come into marriage with. There's so much information. There's so much information in your head, expectations and all of that you don't even need. Because when you get married, when you start having sex, your journey is unique to just you and your spouse. It's not, it's not
It's not what you see in
it's
the
not
movies.
what you need, to be honest. And you guys form your own journey as you go along the way. And so aside from the information, you also have experiences, like it or not, whether you've been a virgin, whether you've not been a virgin, you've had experiences where sex is concerned. Whether you've had experiences or whether you've never had an experience, that's an experience in itself.
Yeah.
And so when you come together, there's the healing, and the healing is your body, but it's mostly your mind. And so you have to get accustomed to the fact that
This is now me and my spouse.
This is now me and my spouse. And then there's this discovery phase where you both have to discover who you are and what you know, what you don't know, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to get into, the things that you're willing to explore, things that you're willing to not go near. You have to discover all of that. What makes you, but what turns you on, what turns you off, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You have to discover that together. And then after that, there is the practice phase. You practice. No one becomes
nobody was born
expert.
as sex expert.
I'm telling you, you're not, and you're also not a machine. You practice, practice. It's just like a makeup artist. You don't just know how to do makeup. You practice over time to get better. And the same thing with sex. But people just believe that once you start having sex, you're supposed to know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, then this sex life is doomed. No, you have to keep practicing. You have to keep trying. And then there is the frenzy phase where you've practiced, you guys have gotten like a routine, you guys have hacked it a little bit, and then before you know it, sex becomes exciting and interesting and you love it. You're having sex like bunny rabbits all over the place. And even if you're not having sex like bunny rabbits all over the place, the thought of having sex is exciting for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with you building intimacy. Intimacy is not the same as sex. Well, there's sexual intimacy, but it's actually not the same. The intimacy is vulnerability.
I'm a firm believer that you can be like sex. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's true, but I'll leave that to. I think sex is not the highest form of intimacy.
It's not. No, it's not.
That's
it's
my own perception. I think that vulnerability is probably. It's up there.
You're very right. Yeah. Intimacy is vulnerability, to be honest. Your ability to be, because for you to be intimate with a person, it means that all your guards are down. Your mind guards, your emotional guards, your physical, everything is down. You're open. It's the basic meaning or the actual definition of being naked and unashamed with a person. It's not just about you being naked per se, but you're being naked in all its, in every form that it means, every sense of the word. Yes, every sense of the word. You being able to share your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, the things that you're afraid of, the things that you are. This person sees you, knows how you are, knows your worst attributes and still loves you the same and is willing to be here. This person has seen you at your worst, seen you at your best. This person knows everything about you. You're able to even rediscover the things that you thought you knew, but you're rediscovering all over again. There are different forms of intimacy. Oh my goodness. There's intellectual intimacy, there's spiritual intimacy, there's sexual intimacy, there is emotional intimacy. There's something called it has to do with hobbies, being intimate with your hobbies and all of that. So there are different forms of intimacies. And so if you're able to hack that in itself is foreplay. Foreplay is not just about you making out, fingering each other or kissing or doing all of that. No, it's way more than that. Foreplay is actually a mind thing.
Sometimes the conversations.
Yes, exactly. And the minute you stop having sex physically, like intercourse and all of that, penetration, is the minute the foreplay for the next round of sex actually begins. And so it's sex and intimacy is all about this cycle, this constant cycle of you putting in the effort. You putting in the effort to make sure that this person is on your mind and you're on that person's mind as well, because what you can see, what you can visualize, it will actually happen. And so after the frenzy phase, then there is the adaptation phase where you guys you get accustomed to each other, where you've adapted to each other, because sex is like a melting pot, where you both melt and mold, shift and shape into each other. You become one. Sex is actually the definition of two becoming one. Well, marriage is in totality, but and so you find your own dance. Sex is a dance. You find your own rhythm. You find your own dance, and then you guys get used to that. And then after that, there's also the reinvention phase, where you've gotten used to each other. It's possible that that place is actually the most dangerous place, where you've gotten so comfortable that you take each other for granted. It's no longer exciting. You know what to do. You know what you like. Yeah, hand your leg here. Okay, turn around and stuff like that. Before you know it, you end up just having sex just in the morning. It's just early morning sex and that's it. But then there's the reinvention phase, meaning that you actually have to rediscover each other, reinvent what you know, and you come back around, you're back to square one, discovery, and then healing, and then practice, and all of that. So the thing about sex that you need to know after knowing all these phases is that you need to get rid of the myths that are out there. Man, the myths are plenty, but 5 myths I really like to touch, and I'm going to do it very quickly so I don't take up your time. And these myths are oh gosh. Sexual compatibility is the first one. Sexual compatibility, orgasms, duration of sex, embracing your sexual nature, fantasies, foreplay. There's one more I added, but these 5 I like to. I'll be 6. I like to touch on them because there are myths that are so dangerous that have destroyed marriages and have also put people in trouble even before they got married. You see, the myth about sexual compatibility, and the reason why it's a myth, is that the honest truth is that you are sexually compatible to the person you get married to. The only reason why you worry and why there's an issue about sexual compatibility is that you've had previous sexual partners, so you have a reference point. You're worried if it will be the same, or if it will be amazing with your spouse like the way it was the same with somebody else that you had sex with. If you do not have a reference point, you are sexually compatible to the person that you get married to. The reason why it is such an issue and why sexual compatibility comes up is that you get married, you start having sex, and you're bumping heads, But that's what practice is about. You have to get used to this person. It's
the face all over again.
Do you understand? It's a different person from you. But the reason why it now becomes an issue and you feel like it's a full-blown issue is because there's someone else that you've had sex with before that was amazing, and now
there's something you've watched or something.
Or there's something you've watched, something you've seen, and so you have a reference point, something to compare it to. Comparison is the most dangerous thing when you're having sex, and it's the reason why they say don't do it before you get married. It's not just about you sinning. It's for this. When God asks us to do things, when God gives us commandments, it's not because he wants us to please him. The truth is that there's nothing that, look, if you want to start saying, oh, I want to please God, you're gonna sweat.
Our righteousness is like filthy rags.
Exactly. Every single thing that God asks us to do is actually for our own good. It's for us. And God knows this issue of sexual, you don't need it. Okay, you don't need it. So that's sexual compatibility. The next myth that I want to touch on very quickly is orgasms. Oh my goodness. My God. Oh my God. Where to begin? Where do I start unpacking this from? If you don't have an orgasm when you have sex, it's okay. It's fine. It's not a must that you have an orgasm. It is not compulsory. Guess what? It's not even necessary.
That's new information.
Oh my goodness.
For a lot of people, I'm sure.
If you have an orgasm when you have sex, that's amazing. That's good. But it's not the goal. It's not the goal. Orgasms are not the goal of sex. Pleasure is the goal of sex. What you're doing when you have sex, when you make love.
Pleasure not equal to
that's the thing. It does. But then you see, the problem is that we have focused more on orgasms more than sex, and so in the process, you're not even focused
on the pleasure.
Because what leads to the orgasm is the intense pleasure, the intensity of the pleasure that you're having. So that's what leads to an orgasm, yes. But then if the focus is that this auntie that I'm knocking now, she must have at least 5 before I leave this place, or you're upset because every single time you have sex with your husband, he just orgasming in 5 minutes everywhere, boss. But nothing is happening. You're not having an orgasm. How about you focus on the process, on the journey, on what you guys are doing? How about and the thing is that, guys, if I want to help you, if it's disturbing you too much and it's tight in your chest and you really want your wife to have an orgasm, start with proper foreplay, and foreplay that's unique to her. What are the things that get to her? What are the things that they push her buttons, they turn her on? Start from there. You would see that, which will now bring me to the duration of sex. When you eventually do penetrate and have sex, you won't have to do too much work, because most of the work is actually done in foreplay. Now, the thing about orgasms and why it's such a big myth, because you see how there's so many, there's seminars, there are articles, there are different things on having the big O, on having multiple O's. It's all selfish, because all you're thinking about is yourself. But the thing is that during
like
sex,
you said at the start, it's selfless.
yes, during sex, where you get the most pleasure, and it's the truth, where you get the most pleasure is from pleasing the other person. That's why it's selfless. When you see how the other person reacts to what you're doing, how you're making them feel, it excites you, it ignites you, and imagine if you're thinking about the other person is thinking about you that way. Come on. Then you're explosive, you will have it. But the goal of sex is pleasure, not an orgasm. An orgasm is an added, it will come, it will happen. But then focus more on giving each other pleasure. You'd see it will make a whole difference. Now, the next thing is, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I wanted to say that it kind of links to life itself, right? How
So good.
sometimes we all are focused on the destination and we don't enjoy the journey. Like you can link the same principle to everything that we do, where you have to be intentional about enjoying your journey of life as much as you're trying to get to a destination, right? So I was just thinking about that.
Very true. Very true. Man, you just threw shade on me now, because that something that I'm dealing with in my head. But so the next thing is the duration of sex. This one is mostly it's for the guys and the women, yes, because the guys feel like if they have sex, if they can last long, you're not a machine. No one was born to be having sex for 1 hour, 2 hours. It's not, don't kill yourself. You're going to die before your time, and then the women also feel like, they're guys, this guy, if this guy can have sex for 6 hours, he's good. It's a lie. Lies, all lies that the world has told you. Society has sold you these lies, and then they sell you drugs, how to help you last for 2 hours. It's not the duration of sex that matters, it's the quality of the sex that you're having. It's the quality, and that's the reason why you focusing on the pleasure and what you're doing, giving each other pleasure, is important. That's why the goal of sex is pleasure. It's not the duration, it's the quality. What are you doing during foreplay? What do you know about foreplay? What are you doing? And then even while you're having sex, do you know how to reach your G-spot? Do you know how to reach his G-spot? Because a man has a G-spot as well. Do you know how to touch each other where it matters the most? Do you know how to discover each other while you're having sex? Do you know how to turn each other on with, dirty talk and all of that? Do you know how to flirt even while you're having sex? All of that. It's the quality of what you're doing. It should be that. The truth is that every time you make love, it's not going to be this memorable experience. Let's not
fireworks.
Your toes are not going to curl every single time you have sex, but it should be that when you have sex, it's worthwhile. Even if it's the slow Sunday morning kind, even if it's the even that is novel. Even that is
Meals
novel.
and bones.
Even if it's just a quickie that you have somewhere, even if it's just let it just be that the quality of sex that you're having is amazing. Speak each other's sex languages. But sex languages, love languages are also, this is me as a therapist talking now, sometimes your sex language, not sometimes, I know that your sex language and your love language is born out of a deficiency of something that you need or something that you're looking for, something that wasn't met while you were growing up. So anyway,
that's a deep that's a conversation that
for
that
another
requires
day.
a lot of depth. That's a conversation that requires a lot of depth.
But anyway, in the meantime, you should learn and know each other's sex languages and each other's love languages. And when I say sex language, some people are alphas. It depends on it doesn't depend on. It doesn't matter if they're the woman or the man. Some people are alpha, some people are go-getters, some people, they're initiators, okay? Some women are, some men aren't, and that's okay, because the myth is that men should always be the one to initiate sex. No, it's not true. Some women are, some men aren't, and you have to know what works for everyone. Some people are the lovey-dovey, everywhere has to be mushy, everywhere
the lights,
everywhere has
the
to
candles.
be yes, exactly. So there's a whole lot. Let's not go into that. And then the other myth that we're talking about is fantasies. I'm just going to say it plain and simple. Because you have a fantasy doesn't mean it has to happen. Okay? Because sometimes your fantasies are rooted in things that you've picked up along the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes your fantasies are something that your spouse is not comfortable with, and that's okay. Because the person is not meeting your fantasy doesn't mean that the person doesn't love you. Doesn't mean the person doesn't want to make love with you. And sometimes because you have a fantasy doesn't mean it has to happen. Let your fantasy be a fantasy. Sometimes a fantasy you don't even need to be having it. You know. And the last thing is foreplay. You can never over talk about foreplay. Foreplay is so underrated. Foreplay, it doesn't get enough cap, to be honest. But foreplay is so very important. It happens way before the bedroom. It happens way before you guys get home. It happens with the conversations. It's just you being intentional with each other, you being mindful of each other, you being touchy-feely, you knowing that this person needs this and meeting that person's needs, you knowing that this person needs to be pleased this way, and you doing that. Then, and foreplay has a lot to do with intimacy. And foreplay also is, you guys being sexualized towards each other, meaning that you touch each other, hug each other, kiss, hold each other. My goodness.
Yeah.
It's weird because we all grew up, I come from a family of 6 kids. I'm the 5th born. I've seen my parents kiss only once. It's hard to now form that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but look, you have to break out of it. You have to. My son is tired of seeing. My son is 2. He'll be 3 this month. He's tired of seeing my husband and I hug. My husband grab my bum, or my husband. I know that he doesn't say anything, but when he starts talking, he's going to say, "Daddy, leave mommy alone." Sometimes he tries to come in between us. But the thing is that your kids will act like what you're doing is, mommy, stop, but they like it, and it gives them a sense of security. But then this is also another topic for another day. But then what I'm trying to say is, get used to feeling each other up. Get used to public display of affection. Again, we live in a very cultural, over spiritualized society where you see a man and a woman holding hands or kissing each other out in public, and you just feel like, what, these ones are sinners, But then you need to get used to it, because guess what? That's where your foreplay begins from. You can't just, and then text each other, sext each other if you must, get freaky. You can't just go to work the whole day and come back and just expect that you're going to enter somebody's pants. What happened? You didn't talk to the person. You didn't check on the person.
Yeah.
You didn't tell the person you're thinking about them. These things are not just, they're not cheesy. They're real. They matter. Because everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to be pampered. Yeah. Mentally, emotionally, physically.
Men and women.
Yes, men and women. Everyone wants, if you send your husband flowers, you would see how he would react. People, they want gifts. Some people, their love language is an act of service. Sometimes just, babe, wear this, meet me here. Do things like that. You may not have the money to say,
exciting.
Babe, meet me here, or just do something when make an effort. Foreplay is about you being intentional with your intimacy. Before you even get to the bedroom, you'd be surprised. By the time you build foreplay, you'd be surprised how the person will jump your bones. And then when you get to sex, there's a foreplay in sex, where you prolong what you're doing before the actual penetration. You prolong the kissing, the touching, the massaging, the being mindful, the caressing. Those things are actually important. It's not just, and then if you don't know how to, learn how to do it. Practice on the person that
everything can be learned.
Yeah, some people say, I don't know, or maybe you're caressing, you want to massage someone, you're pressing the person's bone is almost cracking. You take it easy, you be calm. Or when you want to learn how to kiss as well, it's a problem. You want to kiss, you're consuming somebody's daughter's mouth. You have to learn how to do it. There's an art to these things. There's an art to seduction. There's an art to foreplay. Learn how to do it. There are people, it's the reason why I do sex therapy. People think that sex therapy is about digging the roots of where your sexual context starts from, and also helping you to educate you into what you're doing, into if you're already married, what you're doing, and if you're going to get married, what you're going into. You have to learn how to do these things. You practice how to caress, practice how to give massages. And the things that some people say, where's the time? It's because you don't understand that you have to make intentional effort. What I tell people, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, is, okay, no, it's not the last thing, because there's one more thing I want to say. What I tell people is, how you're going to work in the morning, and if you're opportune to live in the environments where we live in, Aja, VGC, and all of that, you wake up pretty early. Or if you're crossing the third mainland bridge, you wake up really early to beat traffic. That same energy, because you have to get to work. You have to get there on time, because you have to get to work by 8 a.m. And so you do whatever it takes to get up early and get to work by 8. That same energy, package it, bring it to your sex life. You do whatever it
What it needs
takes
to
to
do.
make sure that your sex life is thriving. You do whatever it takes to make sure that you please the other person, and the pleasure that you need to, you'll get it. Because the thing about pleasure is that if you're a normal human being, and if you are not thinking like this, then you need therapy.
And like, if you love your partner, right?
Yes, that's what I was about to say. If you're not thinking like this, then you need therapy. The thing about pleasure is, the minute you begin to think about the other person, the minute you begin to make effort and be intentional with the other person, and the other person sees it and feels it, it will be automatically reciprocated. Now, if you're a person that they're giving you all of this and you do
And
not
you're not
feel the need to
reciprocating it, then you're
then
not
you
in-
need
yeah,
therapy.
yeah.
You need help. Then you need to, there's something wrong, and it's not an insult. It's the truth that there's something wrong somewhere. And so this about sex is it in a nutshell. The last thing I want to say is embracing your sexuality. Again, we live in an over spiritualized, religious and cultural
I think it's even
society.
more of religion than spirituality.
Yes, because you see that growing up, all they tell you that sex is bad, sex is a sin, and so when you finally get married, it's an issue for you to be able to embrace.
thou
who
shalt
you
not
are.
have sex.
Yeah, and now that you're having sex, it's like,
Something you should
missionary
be
all the
ashamed
time.
of.
Something you should be ashamed of, and you don't know how to come out of that because again, it's a mindset that has been sold to you your whole life. What I like to tell people, and the reason why I sit with both married people and singles, is that sex is a gift from God. Sex is not bad. Sex is not a sin. Sex is sex is amazing. Sex is great. Okay. What you should know is that you not having sex now is not a function of God not wanting you to enjoy your life. No, it's a function of God actually wanting you to, God trying to save you from consequences that you don't need to deal with now. Because when you have sex with multiple people, you form soul ties. There's so many things, there are consequences that come about. You getting the possibility of you getting pregnant, you having a child out of wedlock. There's so many things. Your life being put on hold just because you couldn't spare, or you couldn't discipline yourself for 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 1 hour or whatever, how many hours, So the thing about having sex is that, and embracing your sexuality when you finally get married, is that people feel like if you embrace how freaky you are, it's a sin, or you're being dirty, or you're a dirty girl, you're a bad girl. It's not that. Can you just embrace the fact that you are actually
A sexual being.
a sexual being? Because God is actually very much a sexual being. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have made you and I like that.
That's why we have urges.
That's why you have it, because if you're made in God's image, everything that you have and you're going through, trust me, he has gone through it and more, and he's going through it as well. And so it's for you to be able to learn and get comfortable with sex, the idea of sex, the act of sex, the art of sex, and knowing when, because you not even having sex before you get married is an issue of discipline. It's not an issue of sin or anything. It's discipline. That's just it, plain and simple. So this is it about sex in a nutshell.
That has been an enlightening segment of the conversation. I think this is definitely time for me to plug the great work you're doing at
So good.
Love from the Room. I'm going to put the handle there so that people can reach out and get help with getting their freak on.
Yes, please. It's so important in life.
This has been so amazing. I really cannot thank you enough, honestly.
Thank you for having
me. We went over time, but it's for a good cause. I'm serious. It's been really great having you. Thank you so much for giving so much of yourself, for sharing so much of your journey, for being vulnerable and just telling your story, right? And I have a deep hope, and I'm definitely sure that this would be helpful to a lot of people.
So good.
On all the subjects that we've touched on. So thank you so much for your time.
Can I just say something? Whenever I share my story on rape, I always like to say now that it has been the greatest honor of my life to have experienced that and be here and to be able to share it. I always tell people, when people say, "Oh, thank you for coming and sharing it," there's nothing else I'm doing in my life, to be honest. It's the greatest honor of my life to have gone through that experience and to be able to share it and help other people, because it just means that I get to be an extension of God here. So yeah.
That's beautiful, honestly. I don't know what to say again after that. That's really beautiful. And I'm just going to end the episode. I like to end. I'm a quotes girl, so I have so I like to end the episodes with a quote. And the one that I had chosen, for this episode was one that I read, which says that, and which just kind of summarizes everything that we've talked about, that says healing takes courage and we all can have courage if we dig a little to find it.
So good.
Right. And I'm hoping and sending a lot of love to anybody who needs to heal from something. I hope that you find the strength that you need, to begin your healing journey. I'm sure it's a journey, right? And there was one question that I actually wanted to ask, which I didn't get to ask, was there is this phrase that time heals all wounds. Is that, would you say that to be true? Would you say time heals all wounds?
Well, it's true and not true, because over time you do get healed, but it's actually your mind that heals all wounds, and that's the truth. Over time you learn how to control your mind. You learn how your mind controls. You don't let your mind control you. You learn how to control your mind. But yeah, over time, I think the person who ever said or wrote that quote, actually had this in mind.
Yeah,
that in time you do get better, and
Yeah.
I think that it's true in a way, in a sense.
And I think that's important. That's why it's important for people to know that it's a journey.
It's a journey,
It's a
yes,
journey,
it's a journey.
and for everyone, the journey would be different,
Yes.
and the duration of the journey will be different. But if you do the work, then you can get there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Iniabasi. It was really lovely having you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and it's a wrap. This was so nice. Thank you.